Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good day, everybody. Hope you're having a good day. Okay, I don't have a ton of things on my mind today. I'm super tired because we have this new little puppy who's adorable and is sleeping right now. But she's interfering with my schedule and sleep, so I'm tired. But I thought that I'd talk a little bit about some cool, when we were young, even when I was a young adult, um, we played a lot of card games, a lot more, I think, than they do today. I kind of have a feeling that card games aren't much of a social event anymore, but we used to play them, and my parents even played them. And I can remember company coming over to the house, and after all the visiting and everything, the adults would go to the main table and play some sort of cards. Not usually poker. They'd play other kind of cards like slapjack and stuff. So us kids would mimic, and we'd go to our little card table and play also. And what games my parents actually played, I don't really remember. Um, I can remember watching them sometimes and laughing hard, so I'm sure it had to be some of these games, but I know when us kids played them, we laughed hysterically. One of our favorite games, card games that we ever did, was we called the name game. And what you do, it's like, if you know slapjack, it's on the same order as slapjack. Um, Slapjack, all the cards are dealt out. Everybody has cards and they're upside down, and you lay them on the table, and then everybody flips their first card all at the same time. And if you've got the same card, I believe this is how slapjack goes. We didn't play it as often. If you've got the same card, like if you've got an ace and somebody else at the table has an ace, you would slap their card, and then you get their stack of cards that's under whatever card you slapped. Um, so it was called slapjack. Well, I don't know. Maybe it was only if you got jack. I don't know. Anyway, you'd have to slap. But the name game was on that same order, in that you'd deal all the cards out, and then everybody would turn them. Oh, then you had to pick a category. For instance, movie stars, or automobile names of automobiles, names of movie stars, names of planets, names of it could be anything, any category you want. But you pick a category, and then everybody has to pick a name in that category, and your goal is to have your name be odd enough, or hard enough. It's harder for other people to remember it or say it. And so, for instance, if we did automobiles, we'd pick a name like Rolls Royce or Austin Healey, or some Studebaker. I don't know, some name that wasn't real easy, like Chevy or Ford. So you'd pick your name. So everybody has a name, and then you have to try to remember everybody else's name that's in the game at the table. And so then then you all flip your first card over, all at the same time. And if you got the same card as somebody else, you try to yell out their name before they yell out your name. And whoever yells out the name quick enough wins the cards. And so you have to try this to understand how funny it is, because you're in a hurry. You're pointing at the person, going, and what usually happens is, it's like when you have kids and you're mad at one of your kids, and so you name all of your kids before you get to the name of the kid you're mad at. And if you have kids already, you know that feeling. Or maybe your parents have done that to you as a kid. My kids would remember that. It was always Jeff, Troy, Shauna. You do the same thing with the name game. You would start naming everybody's name because you're remembering, but getting that person's name, if they picked a good one, could be difficult. And they're doing the same thing. So you're both pointing and laughing, and then you laugh so hard you can't say the name, It just is a fun game. If you have a lot of people, it's the more people you have, of course, the harder it is. If you have a lot of people, I believe you could use two decks. Maybe you could use two decks anyway. That way, matching cards would come up more often. But give it a try if you never have, because I swear to God, you will laugh so hard your sides will ache. Another game we used to play, I think it was just called Pig, but I don't remember 100%, but I think it was called Pig. And it was a game, well, I don't know what it was like, but you got dealt a certain number of cards, or maybe you got all the cards dealt out, I can't remember, but you had a certain number of cards, and then you're trying to get four of a kind. And so what you do is you have these cards in your hand, and you pick the ones you want. You're going to try to get four of a kind of. Maybe you already have two jacks, for instance, and so you want to get four jacks. So now and say you have five cards altogether. Now your other three cards you could discard. So what you do is you take a card, one of those cards you don't want, and you pass it on the table. You push it on the table to the person to your left, and the person on your right pushes a card to you. And they're hoping they're not giving you a card you want, and you're hoping you're not giving the guy next to you a card you want. But you're very involved in this whole looking at your cards and picking up the one next door and figuring out one. So you're very involved in your own little hand. Now, the object is when you get four of a kind, you'll put your hand up like a pig nose, like this. And then you wait. And so as the cards are being passed, you still take the card and you pass it on, because the longer it takes people to notice, the funnier it is. So you're sitting there and you're passing these cards, and everybody's so involved in what they're doing, they're not looking at you. And so finally somebody sees you, but they don't tell everybody. They put their nose up and they're doing it, and the last person to put their nose up loses. So they've lost. I guess they lose their cards, or I don't remember what they lose. But I'm wondering if you could look the card game up online, if anybody would have put the rules out there. But that was another one I can remember that we played as a kid. When I was an adult, I used to try to get friends that came over to play the name game, but most of the time they just wanted to do poker. I wasn't a good poker player, and I didn't really understand the hands that well, so it wasn't my favorite game to play. But those are some of the games we played in the house, when company came over, when we weren't outside playing all the games my dad taught us, like Red Rover and Annie Over, hide and seek, dodgeball. Of course, y'all know dodgeball. You got that in school. Gosh, I can't remember. My dad taught us so many cool games. Kick the can. My brother broke his arm playing kick the can. Him and another kid ran up to kick the can at the same time, and my brother just got kicked right over and landed on his arm wrong. Broke his arm. I'm sure he remembers that. But we played lots of fun games like that. Since it's getting close to the 4th of July, I thought I'd talk a little bit about the fireworks. Most of the time, I'm sure that when we were little, my dad took us to see fireworks. It seems like it might have been couldn't have been at the airport. But I think he did. But I don't remember that real often, so I don't think we did that often. Generally, we had fireworks at home. And the ones that we had every year that we remember, I believe they still even have today, are the little worms. Like you put the thing on the ground and then you light it and it starts making this wormy looking ash thing. Those were really cool. And sparklers we absolutely loved. Back then, they were, the little stick you held onto was metal. So it would be hot on the end where the stuff was that was burning. And when they crackled, their little sparkles hurt when they hit you because it was actually, a flamey thing, and so that was fun. I mean, doing that with those little flamey things. And then they had things that you could shoot off like rockets. I think they did away with a lot of that stuff when it became safe and sane fireworks because too many roofs were caught on fire, but we never had a fire. But it was fun. But I can remember as a young adult, um, when my kids were little, that we went to Bass Lake for the fireworks, and we would do that as often as we could. And one year we went, and it was just crowded. We got there late, and the whole place was crowded. You couldn't hardly park. Back then, they let you park on the side of the road as long as there was that you'd only have one lane. It was a fire hazard, I think, is why they kind of didn't let you do that like we did anymore, because we parked it. There would only be room for one car to go past because cars were parked on both sides of the little narrow road. And so you couldn't, if you wanted to get out of there quickly, there was no way that was going to happen. So, so we went there, and the only place we found this place that at least had a place we could sit, and that we could park the car there. I believe we were at the Forks. Yeah, I think we were at the Forks at Bass Lake. And so we parked the car in their parking lot, and then we walked over to the only place that was available where people weren't already sitting. And so we sat down there, we put our blankets out. We had a little picnic, we're waiting. It's still daylight, because you get there early enough to get a seat. And as we're sitting there, all of a sudden this smell wafts over us, and it was an outhouse smell. I mean, it was just wafting over us, and we're going, what is going on here? And then we figured out that we were actually sitting on the top of where they have a dump station for RVs near there, and we were sitting on top of where it actually was, and I believe it had a little vent, probably so it wouldn't explode or something. And when the breeze was blowing, the right direction, you didn't smell it. So we didn't smell it at all when we first got there. Well, we couldn't move because there wasn't any other place to sit. So we had to put up with that smell while we did the fireworks. And so that was quite an experience. We had all sorts of jokes going on about that, the kids and us, because it was, you make good out of a bad situation. We'd all yell incoming when the smell would come back at you. It was fun. But the most fun we had at the fireworks was one year. My sister worked for a real estate office in Bass Lake, and they used to do rentals. They used to take care of rentals. And so if somebody who had rented a place backed out at the last minute, they would lose their deposit, of course. And so the owners of the house then either might come up themselves, or they would rent it to somebody else on a short notice. Normally you had to rent these months ahead, So the odds of getting a place on the 4th of July was practically impossible unless you did it a year ahead, because it's so popular. Because the Bass Lake fireworks are totally cool. They have a boat parade where these people who own boats decorate them all up, and then they cruise around the lake all lit up and decorated for the 4th of July, and blow their horns and do all this kind of stuff. They make guns out of PVC pipe and create them so that they'll actually pump water, and then they get water out of the lake, and they'll pull up in front of a cabin, and they'll pump these things and shoot water at people, or shoot water at other boats. It was totally cool. So this cabin came up, and they would let us have it for just the weekend, and that was not normal. Normally you'd rent it for a week, but because the people had to back out and they lost their deposit, these people had already made some money, so they let us rent it, and well, let my sister rent it, and everybody who went helped pay for it, and it was awesome. It was like we kept saying, this is like the rich folks live. I mean, this thing was 3 stories. It had 2 or 3 balconies. I can't remember, 2 or 3 balconies on the lakeside of the cabin. And so, and they were huge. The length of the cabin were these huge balconies. And there were beds, just tons of beds in this place that had 3 actual bedrooms, that had beds set up in the dining area, and it just had beds so that it could accommodate a large number of people. So my sister invited some of her friends to go, and she invited us. And this was when the kids were teenagers, and so they were doing their own thing, but they did come over to stay the night and to see the fireworks. And a friend of ours came with her little boy, and it had a kitchen and everything, so we cooked this great food, and we barbecued and we cooked, and we had this whole layout out there on the table, and so we actually spent, I think, 2 days there, and it was just the most awesome thing ever. It was like living like the rich. You had this beautiful, huge house. People who saw us there didn't know we didn't own it, so we pretended like we did. Then there was a cabin next to ours where some people were probably renting also, because they were pretty rowdy people, but they had balloons, and they started throwing water balloons at us. So we had to get balloons and throw water balloons back at them. We cleaned it all up when we were done. We left it in as good a shape as it was when we came, but we sure had fun. And so one of the boats from out that was out getting ready to do the parade, because they do the parade right at dusk just before the fireworks go off. And so one of the boats came over close to our cabin, and we're up on the balcony, but we were low enough where you could actually talk to the people on boats. The balcony we weren't on the ground floor balcony, but we were on this one, and you could talk to these people. And so this boat came up, and they're talking to us and asking us things. I don't know if we own the cabin or something, I don't know. Anyway, and all of a sudden they bring out these bazooka guns that they made, and were shooting water at us, and it was fun. I have to say that was one of the most fun times we ever had at Bass Lake, even from when we were kids, in my opinion. Just being at that cabin, it was a phenomenal experience. I thought it was so cool that my sister invited us to go. Wouldn't have changed it for anything. So that's some of the memories of Bass Lake, even though or not just Bass Lake, but the fireworks, even though I don't have a ton of them. I can't remember anything specific happening on the 4th of July ever as we grew up. Nothing that stuck in my head, And I've come to probably the end of my videos, because I'm really kind of out of memories of things. I have a few I might have even mentioned already, and that's the trouble. Some of them I think I probably did already mention, but I might have mentioned when Peepaw and I were first married. We used to be able to go to a drag race where you could enter the drag race, and Peepaw always had old vehicles that he managed to get. I think I said it, but he managed to get them somehow. He trade for them, or trade services, or just another parts of a vehicle he had or whatever. And he had this old, I think it was a Ford pickup that had a new a bigger engine in it, a newer engine in it. Wasn't stock or anything. Had big tires on the back, and I can remember going out to the drags. We actually drove out in that pickup, and then he decided to race. He probably decided that before we went. And when you'd go out there to race, you spin your back tires so that the rubber gets warm, and that gives you grip. So when you take off, you don't spin. So you go out there, but it also takes off the tread of your tires, of course. So we went out there, and one year we went out and blew a tire, and we did not have a spare, a good spare, nothing he could. It got us home, but that was it, because it was the wrong size compared to what he had on there. But he spun it so much that it blew the tire. Another time we went out there, he stripped the gear on. He always did manual shift. Driving an automatic was not kosher. I mean, that's what women did. So he would, any vehicle he got that had an automatic transmission in it, he would put a manual transmission in, even if it meant cutting out the floorboard of the vehicle, which he did on one of them. He cut out the floorboard, so when you got in the vehicle, you could see the top of the transmission right there. And of course, he was always going to fix that, but never did. And talk about hot, and road grit would come up in there. It was terrible, but he had to have a stick transmission. And of course, they never were quite compatible. You'd always have to put some sort of adapter, and so we'd strip them all the time. So, but he had gotten in the race and took off and threw that thing into gear and just stripped the transmission. And we had to have friends tow us all the way home. Now, when you towed a vehicle back in the day, I'm not sure they allow this anymore. Somebody would either have a rope or a chain them up, and you'd pull them down the street. And the person in the vehicle being towed had to, if a light was coming up or something, they had to brake first so that they'd slow down the vehicle in front of them so that you wouldn't lose the tension in the rope very much, because you didn't want to jerk every time you took off. So it was always scary, in my opinion, to be towed. I hated it, but yeah, we got towed all the way home. And we were, I think it's in Raisin City we used to go, and I can't tell you mile-wise how far that was from where we lived, but it's out there. It was out on what was considered west side, of our community, and it was a ways to go. It was more country-like, but it was cool. It was fun times. We used to really enjoy going out there and doing that. And I doubt it's anything that they have available today. I can't, I don't know of any place that lets you come and race your own vehicle just right off the street, They had the lights that counted down, and people always jumped the light. He always took off before the last light lit up correctly, and he got dinged for that. I think that probably cost $5 or something to be able to race. It was something we used to do, fun stuff. Anyway, that's probably it for now. And I doubt that I'll have another video anytime real soon, unless something comes up. I'm going to have a few videos of our new puppy. I've got a couple up already, quick little short things. But I kind of thought I'd let her run around and be goofy and make people smile a little bit. But I can't. I'm out of memories. So we managed to get all of Memaw's memories into 13 episodes, and that's kind of pathetic, actually. But I could have gone into more detail on them and stretched it out further, I guess, but I was too excited to tell you about all the stuff, especially the differences between back then and today. Life was just way different. So that's it. I have enjoyed doing this. If I think of another route to take or something I think anybody might be interested in, I might talk some more. I like to talk. So if not, have a great year and month and life, and love you guys, and come and see me. Come and visit me. That's what I want. Okay, talk to you later.